All right, Celtic fans, strap yourselves in because we're about to get into the thick of it. I've got to be honest with you, the start of this transfer window has been nothing short of a disaster so far. We're talking about the kind of chaos that makes you question if anyone in the club actually has a clue what they're doing. After the game on Saturday, sure, things looked a bit brighter. There was a buzz in the stadium, and Martin Neal coming back gave everyone a bit of hope. But then you see Hearts and Rangers picking up wins yesterday, and it's like we've been thrown straight into a nightmare. Hearts playing with 10 men, scrape a win, Craig Gordon pulling off saves that honestly make you wonder what league we're in, and Rangers, of course, get the job done in a tough away game. These teams aren't dropping points anymore. They're focused, they're building, and what are we doing? Practically nothing. It feels like we're handing the league title to them on a silver platter, and that's not hyperbole. Now, let's talk about the deals we've been linked with, because if this is the best Celtic can do, then we've got serious problems. Nothing seems to be moving, and when it does, the players themselves look miles away from what this club should even be considering. It's like we're signing names just to fill up the roster rather than actually improving the squad. We're 12 days in, the window's been open, and here we are barely any closer to signing anyone of note. This isn't just a case of poor timing or bad luck. It's systematic. We've had months to identify weak spots in the squad, glaringly obvious gaps that needed immediate attention, and what do we have to show for it? Absolutely nothing concrete. And before anyone throws excuses about managerial changes or football operations reshuffles, that doesn't fly. There are no excuses for bringing in names so far beneath Celtic standard. Take Jocelyn Tabby, for example, that highly controversial transfer everyone was talking about. Yeah, the deal's off, and while some might breathe a sigh of relief, the reason it collapsed is telling. It wasn't protests or politics. It wasn't even a dispute over money. It was a failed medical. Celtic went after a player they knew had fitness concerns, and shocker, he didn't pass the medical. That's amateur-level oversight, the kind of stuff that should never happen at a club of this stature. Tabby was meant to arrive from Israel for around £2 million, but surgery was needed. The deal got placed under review, and now he's out. The bigger problem is the principle here. We tried to sign a player already injured, fully aware there was a risk of this happening. What does that say about the decision-making process? How are these signings even being sanctioned? It's mind-boggling. And while we're talking wingers, the next potential target on the list is Ignacio Lintana, a loan move from Brazil with an option to buy. Now, let me be clear, I get the financial constraints. I understand we can't just throw cash at every top winger out there, but if this is the caliber of player we're looking at to fix the right wing, then Celtic fans, brace yourselves. 26 years old, out of favour at RB Bragantino, and a career total of just over 20 goals from over 200 appearances. On paper, it reads like a player who's struggling to make an impact. Maybe he'll hit a renaissance, maybe he'll rediscover his form, but right now it's a gamble. And how many times have we been burned betting on these out-of-favour types who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo? Celtic should be aiming higher, thinking bigger, not settling for someone who barely impresses, even in a league most of us have never heard of. Now, if we shift to the striker situation, brace yourselves for even more eye-watering news. The latest rumours link us with Mohamed Bamba, a player currently at FC Lorient. And yes, you heard me right, a loan move with an option to buy. Bamba has struggled for form since leaving Israel, scoring just one goal this season, barely featuring as a starter. And has lacked confidence since 2023, and yet this is apparently the solution Celtic are considering for their striking woes. It's baffling, absolutely baffling. When you look at his stats, there's very little to suggest he can make an impact at this level. It's the kind of signing that makes you want to tear your hair out because you know the board sees this as acceptable. And for fans, it's hard not to feel utterly disillusioned. And here's the kicker, folks. This is where Dudu Duhan comes back into the story. Yes, the same agent behind previous questionable deals. It's almost like a recurring joke, except it's not funny. Bamba is represented by Duhan, and somehow, despite all past evidence, the conversation is being entertained. You start to question the criteria being used for signings, and is it simply, can the player barely perform? Are they down on their luck? Perfect. Bring them to Celtic. This cycle of mediocrity is exhausting. We should be looking at players who can make an immediate difference, not lottery tickets with a remote chance of redemption. Finally, in slightly more positive news, Stephen Welsh has been recalled from Motherwell. 6 months on loan, playing well, making 17 appearances, and now back to strengthen the centre-half options. At least this is a sensible move, one that actually adds depth without risking funds on another questionable gamble. But it's almost a bitter pill because while this makes sense, it highlights even more starkly the absurdity of the winger and striker situations. Celtic aren't spending money where it matters. They're taking the easy route where risk is highest, and it's hard not to feel frustration when the league race is already slipping through our fingers. Moving on, let's dig deeper into this madness that has become Celtic's transfer window. The winger situation alone says so much about where we are as a club right now. We've been linked with players who are barely producing in their current teams, yet somehow Celtic are supposed to believe that a change of scenery and a Celtic shirt will suddenly transform them into world-class performers. Ignacio Lintana, for example, he ticks the box of being 26 out of favour with a career full of mediocrity. Yes, he had moments in Brazil, but the reality is clear when you look at the numbers. And numbers don't lie. Over 200 games, barely more than 20 goals. It's not inspiring. It's not ambitious. It's not even remotely what we should be aiming for if the league title is the target. And yet, this is what the club is settling for. The reaction from fans has been predictable. Disbelief, frustration, and anger all rolled into one. You can almost hear the collective sigh when his name pops up. This isn't a football strategy. It's an exercise in lowering expectations. Now, if the winger drama wasn't enough, the striker hunt takes the cake for sheer underwhelming planning. Mohamed Bamba, a player whose form has been inconsistent at best for the past 3 seasons, is reportedly under consideration. A loan with an option to buy is being floated, and Celtic fans across the country are left scratching their heads. The guy has scored 1 goal this season, 1. At this level, 1 goal doesn't even count as a warm-up. And yet this is supposed to solve our striker problem. Let's be honest, a club of Celtic's stature should be pushing for players who can change games, not someone who has been scraping by in France's second tier for the last few seasons. But there it is. And behind the scenes, of course, is Dudu Duhan, the familiar face in all this mess. The agent behind some of our most questionable recent signings is back, and suddenly his clients are being discussed as viable options. It's almost farcical. You want to laugh, but really you just want to cry. And while these potential arrivals sit in limbo, Celtic's rivals are working their socks off. Rangers are spending millions, improving their squad, addressing weaknesses with clear intent and decisive action. Hearts, too, aren't standing still. And yet, here we are, seemingly paralyzed, chasing shadows and hoping for miracles from players who have little to prove they can perform. It's hard not to feel like the club is actively making it easier for our competitors to take the league title. Fans are understandably restless because week after week the same stories keep popping up. Loan deals, players out of favor, names that inspire no confidence at all. It's exhausting watching it unfold, knowing that time is ticking and we're still no closer to having a team capable of seriously challenging at the top. Even looking beyond the transfer rumors, there's a bigger picture of worry. The mentality around the club seems tentative. Confidence is patchy, decisions are slow, and the atmosphere, while lifted by a few recent wins, can't mask the underlying sense of chaos. Celtic aren't just trying to fill gaps, they're failing to instill a sense of ambition. Where is the vision? Where is the boldness? You watch other clubs plan carefully, bring in reinforcements that genuinely strengthen the squad, and you compare it to us, bringing in players on a wing and a prayer, hoping something clicks. That's not planning, that's hope dressed up as ambition, and hope alone won't win league titles. The situation becomes even more stark when you consider the timing. The window is closing, days are slipping past, and yet we're still talking about tentative bids and players who don't inspire confidence. Every day wasted is another advantage given to our rivals, and the fans feel it. Trust me, they feel it in the stands, in online discussions, in the pubs. There's a sense of growing impatience, of frustration with leadership that doesn't appear to be doing the job expected of them. It's not negativity for the sake of it. It's observation based on months of inactivity and a string of underwhelming transfer decisions. People are tired of seeing half measures and excuses. Then there's the question of long-term impact. Bringing in players like Lintana or Bamba isn't just about this season. It affects the club's trajectory. Are we developing talent? Are we building a squad that can sustain success over years? Or are we cobbling together short-term fixes that may or may not work? The way it looks right now, it's the latter. We should be thinking about the next 5 years, not just patching holes until the next window. A player recalled from loan, like Stephen Welsh, is a sensible addition, yes, but it also highlights the broader inadequacy elsewhere. The real gaps in the squad aren't being addressed, and the clock is ticking relentlessly. And let's not forget the psychological effect on the squad itself. Players want to see ambition. They want to know the club is serious about winning, about improving, about giving them tools to succeed. When the signings and rumors suggest anything less than that, it affects morale. Confidence within the dressing room doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every missed opportunity in the transfer market sends a message, and the message right now seems to be that Celtic are making do, hoping for scraps and reacting rather than planning. It's a dangerous place to be, especially with the pressure of a title race that could be slipping away at this very moment. Finally, you have to consider the fans' perspective. We've been through seasons like this before, and it never gets easier watching the club flounder when it could be dominant. Hope flickers with every potential signing, and disappointment crashes down when reality sets in. The supporters have seen what's possible, they know the standard, and every weak link or misjudged deal hits hard. That frustration builds, it simmers, and it doesn't disappear overnight. It's a hard pill to swallow, knowing that the tools to compete are there, but the execution is falling short. Fans want progress, tangible progress, not a continuous cycle of mediocrity masked as ambition. And right now, that's exactly what they're seeing. The striker and winger issues feed into each other, compounding a problem that feels systemic. Bamba, Lintana, all of these options are symptomatic of a club that is reacting rather than acting. The ambition gap between Celtic and their rivals is glaring, and fans are acutely aware of it. When a league campaign is on the line, when every point matters, you cannot afford to gamble on players who have yet to prove themselves or patch holes with short-term solutions. Celtic supporters are not naive. They know when a gamble is worth it and when it's just a risk without upside. And unfortunately, much of what we're seeing this January window falls into the latter category. Yet amidst the frustration, there is still hope, however small. Players like Welsh returning to the squad, young talent being monitored, and the occasional loan move that could surprise us all serve as reminders that anything can happen. The key is whether Celtic will act decisively in the remaining weeks, whether the board and management can pivot from reactive decisions to bold strategic ones. Fans are longing for evidence that ambition still exists, that the team being assembled can compete for honours and not just muddle through the season. The coming days will be crucial, not just for individual deals, but for the wider sense of direction and intent from the club. Supporters are watching closely and patience is wearing thin. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favourite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The noise around the old firm has taken a darker, rawer turn, and inside the corridors of Scottish football, the word doing the rounds is not rivalry, but outright hatred. According to whispers coming from both sides of the city, the Rangers manager has let loose a brutal verdict on Martin O'Neill, branding the Celtic figure a dinosaur stuck in another age of the game. It is the sort of language that never reaches a microphone by accident, and folk close to Ibrox insist it was meant to sting, to draw blood before a ball is even kicked. Those in green are said to be raging. O'Neill's name still carries weight across the country, and the suggestion that his thinking belongs to the past has been taken as more than mind games. Sources around Celtic Park reckon the comment has hardened attitudes in the dressing room, feeding a sense that Rangers are no longer just opponents but enemies who want to erase respect along with points and pride. Behind the scenes, the relationship between the clubs is being described as toxic. Officials barely speak. Intermediaries are doing the talking, and every small gesture is read as provocation. The Rangers camp, for their part, are said to believe O'Neill represents everything they want to smash: tradition over innovation, nostalgia over modern bite. Calling him a dinosaur, in their view, is not abuse but a declaration of war. Supporters feel it too. The chatter in pubs and online is sharp, unforgiving, and laced with anger. This is not the playful slagging of old. It is personal, visceral, and loaded with history. The old firm has always thrived on tension, but the current crisis feels different, heavier, as if one careless phrase has ripped open wounds that never truly healed. Whether the comment was calculated or simply a moment of rage hardly matters now. The damage is done. The classic rivalry is once again soaked in bitterness, and Scottish football braces itself for another chapter where pride, power, and pure spite threaten to overshadow the game itself. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.